Hi everyone, my name is Garney and I'm a registered clinical nutritionist for a company called Nutrition for Health, which is my own private practice based in New Zealand. I have a practice in Tauranga where I see clients face to face, but I also do meet with clients over Zoom around the country, so in various parts of New Zealand, but also Australia as well. So I have actually been asked to do a presentation for, it was for the Coeliac Society update sort of meeting that they were going to have over Zoom. And as the meeting is no longer going ahead, I've been asked to record a presentation. So I'm hoping this is going to be interesting for you. The presentation is going to cover just a few key areas that the Coeliac Society did ask me to cover. So I'm hoping that you're going to find this interesting and informative. So just a bit about me. So as I've mentioned, I have a clinic based in Tauranga. So I've been in practice now for about just over 10 years in clinic, and I predominantly work with adults and children in terms of supporting their gut and digestive health, especially in terms of helping to support people with food allergies and intolerances. So how I got into that area is I'm a celiac myself. So I was actually diagnosed about 20 years ago in the UK. And so a lot of my work is actually sort of helping to support people getting started on a gluten-free diet in terms of optimizing what they're eating, as it can be really overwhelming at first when you first get like a celiac diagnosis, a intolerant diagnosis, and you are needing to adjust your diet. It can be quite overwhelming at times. So my presentation today is all about eating for optimal health while gluten-free. So, started. So how do we optimize our health while on a gluten-free diet? Well, we can actually start by basing our meals and our lunches on natural whole foods. Because when you look at what you can eat, in terms of those natural whole foods, there is actually quite a lot you can eat. So things like meat, so unprocessed meat, fish, poultry, eggs, vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds, legumes, fermented foods for gut health, and dairy products such as yogurt and cheese and milk, if you're not lactose intolerant, that is. And if you're able to tolerate gluten-free grains, these can be great alternatives as well. So things like rice and corn, like you can have corn chips or corn tacos. Quinoa makes a great grain alternative and can also be used as a flour in baking. Millet and sorghum and buckwheat. Buckwheat is great for as a flour as well for bread and pancakes. And amaranth is often used in a kind of gluten-free cereal basis. So when you actually look at all that, if you are actually choosing unprocessed food, there is actually a real abundance of foods that gluten-free processed foods are still junk foods, and they do lack nourishment. So going gluten-free is not about just replacing those foods with gluten-free alternatives. And I know that is easily done at the beginning when you first go gluten-free. I see it a lot with my clients, particularly if they do eat very much a heavily bread and sort of pastries and cracker-based diet, you naturally want to look at those as gluten-free alternatives, but that may not be the kind of the optimal way to be eating for nourishment. So think when you're eating your breakfast, lunch and dinner, how is this food going to nourish me today? So what kind of nutrients am I going to get from this food? Is it going to nourish me, or is it going to just be like an empty calorie, highly processed sugary food that's not going to sustain me for very long? What I recommend to my clients is to build your main meal in 4 steps. And this can be helpful as well if you have members of your family who are gluten eaters still, and people who are gluten-free, because you can generally, the step 4 is the optional one. So those gluten members can add in something themselves. But so step 1, so choose your meat or protein. So it would be meat or poultry such as chicken or fish or eggs or legumes or nuts and cheese. And then step 2 would be to add some vegetables. So you want to aim for a good half a plate of a variety of vegetables, just for those nutrients and vitamins and minerals and antioxidants. So bulking out your meals with vegetables is a good idea. And then step 3 would be to add flavor. So you can do things like salt and pepper and fresh herbs and single spices. You have to be careful of like mixed spice blends, as they may not necessarily be gluten-free. So with anything like that, you want to label. Homemade chicken stock, so not shop bought chicken stock, unless it's certified gluten-free. Then homemade chicken stock is a good option for flavoring, and oils and butter as well. And step 4, so optional. So some people would prefer to do this, is to add in some starchy carbs, such as potato or kumara or rice or corn tacos or gluten-free pasta. And then if there's any members of the family who are wanting to be gluten, they can then have that part of it separately as well. So it's important to, when we look at food choices, to eat for optimal energy and metabolism, especially if you have suffered from celiac disease for a long time and you've only just really got your diagnosis. And the reason for that is you're likely to be having a few kind of nutritional deficiencies. So quite often with the kind of gut lining, absorption of nutrients has not been that optimal, particularly in terms of things like iron and B12 and zinc. So just eating for optimal energy metabolism is really important, just to kind of help with those energy levels and to keep you full throughout the day. So aim to have a serving of healthy fat, protein and fiber source with each meal. This will help to avoid blood sugar fluctuations, keep you full and sustain energy levels throughout the day. So there's some healthy fat ideas here. So salmon and tuna, nuts, nut butters, seeds and avocado. It's great. You can have that on a bit of gluten-free toast or some gluten-free crackers. Butter, coconut oil, olive oil. So those are really beneficial, healthy fat ideas. Obviously, we'll also kind of meat on fat. Fat on meat as well. The one which I haven't actually put that down for some reason. And protein ideas would be like your meat, fish, poultry, eggs, dairy products, nuts, seeds, legumes, and things like lentils and beans and chickpeas, which are really great in salads and stews and things like curries and even sort of pastas as well. And then looking at a good fiber source, so vegetables is really where you're going to get kind of a lot of really good fiber sources. So a variety of vegetables, fruit as well, especially things like kiwi fruit, lentils, beans, rice, whole grain rice, and gluten-free grains. So those are good fiber sources that can help you, irregular as well. So to reduce things like constipation. Limit refined sugar and processed carbohydrates. So I've already mentioned that as already, in that sugar can actually not keep you sustained, and you likely to have kind of sugar crashes and end up sort of craving more sugar and craving sort of more sort of easy, quick grab sort of carbohydrates, which don't keep you sustained for very long, and then you're craving more of the same. And drink plenty of water. So aim for about 30 mils for each kg of body weight is a good way to go. So for example, if you're around about 60 kgs, I think that's about 2 litres, or it might be just less than that. That's on a non-exercise day, so that's just for optimum hydration. But obviously on an exercise day, if you're out running in intense heat for an hour, you'd want to be increased that by at least 500 mils to a litre, depending on the type of exercise you've done. So we've talked about sugar not being great for optimal energy, and in terms of kind of keeping you sustained and in terms of your energy levels throughout the day. So here's just a few ideas on how to reduce sugars, which you likely know already. I guess some of you will be already been gluten-free for some time, so a lot of this you'll know already, but hopefully this will just be like a bit of a reminder. So you can replace sugary desserts with fruit and plain acidophilus yogurt, so probiotic yogurt, and you can add some nuts, which can be quite a nice dessert. Also reduce fizzy drinks because they contain a lot of sugar, and choose things like sparkling water or lemon and lime, or even things like kombucha or even herbal teas as an alternative. If you are craving sugar or chocolate, choose a couple of squares of like an 85% dark chocolate instead, and you might find that this is helpful to curb your sugar cravings, but also it's a rich source of magnesium, dark chocolates. One of the reasons you might have been craving chocolate is that you might just need a bit more magnesium in your diet. So a couple of squares of dark chocolate may well be for that. And that will be really supportive for your adrenals as well. And so use fruit and stevia or stevia in baking. And this is what I tend to do, is to use things like mashed ripe banana and things like sultanas and stevia in baking, or you can use some sort of kind of honey or other sort of coconut sugar or other sort of sugar alternatives rather than refined sugar, just to lower that sugar content. A really important thing to do is to be careful of hidden sugars, so particularly gluten-free breakfast cereals. So they can be a very big source of hidden sugars, particularly the box cereals that are designed for kids. Like you can get like gluten-free cereals, like cocoa cereals and corn, I don't want to name brands, but corn-based cereals as well that can be quite high in sugar. So it's important to check the label. Even some of the gluten-free mueslis are cereals can be high in sugar because they may contain a lot of honey and dried fruit as well. So if you're looking to reduce your sugars, just check labels, because it is better to start off with a more of a protein-rich breakfast, like with say eggs, rather than having a sugary cereal, just for kind of sustained energy. Canned fruit is another one just to be careful with. I remember this from my Heart Foundation days. I used to volunteer for the Heart Foundation many years ago, and used to do a presentation on sugar content in some sort of processed foods, and canned fruit in syrup it's astonishing how much sugar is in there. And canned fruit in syrup is often the one on special in the supermarket. So if you're looking for like a canned fruit salad and you go and choose something like that very quickly, and just make sure it is not in syrup, because the sugar content is just incredible compared to say the canned fruit and juice, which is always the one that's not on special. If you do buy canned fruit and syrup by accident, though, just give it a good rinse just to get rid of some of that sugar content. But just something to be aware of there, because it's there's a lot of sugar there. Also, just to be careful of sauces and other processed foods, and even those healthy protein nut bars can be quite high in sugar, particularly if they're containing a lot of dried fruits and chocolate pieces. Fizzy drinks, as already mentioned, really high in sugar. Going back to my Heart Foundation days, I can't remember exactly, but I remember it being about in a can of Coke about 9 teaspoons of sugar, or approximately, or something like that. So a lot of sugar in fizzy drinks. And flavored yogurt too. a small bottle of those like little yogurts that you'd often give to the kids. There's like a pear and I remember looking at quite recently a pear and banana flavored one, and there was about 20 grams of sugar. So absolutely, yeah, really, really important to check labels and just to see what sugar content there is, and really opt for plain acidophilus yogurt, and some fruit is a really good option. So we can also just be mindful of what we're eating for improved mood, particularly if you feel quite sluggish in the afternoons, like you get a 3 p.m. slump, afternoon sugar cravings, and that could be to do with low serotonin. As when serotonin levels in the brain drop, we develop a craving for sugar and carbohydrate-rich foods. So eating foods rich in the amino acid tryptophan may actually help to boost serotonin levels. Tryptophan is an amino acid from protein that is important for the production of serotonin, which is our feel-good neurotransmitter that helps to build mood and brain function and sleep. So if you eat, say, a tryptophan-rich food at breakfast, like something like eggs for breakfast, and maybe for lunch you might have a chicken salad or a chicken salad sandwich, that can actually help with those afternoon sugar cravings, just to kind of help sort of balance that out, so you're not sort of reaching for the sugar or reaching for the coffee at that time to get through kind of that slump and that sort of traditional 3 p.m. slump in blood sugars. And so, yeah, so foods rich in tryptophan, they're your protein foods again. So salmon and chicken and eggs and milk and cheese and tuna and beef, pork, peanuts in particular, spinach and pumpkin seeds. So, yeah, if you do have that kind of afternoon slump, yeah, let's give that a go and see if that kind of helps at all. At the moment, in the current climate, we're obviously in the middle of a pandemic. It's important that we also support the immune system with food. So one way to do it is obviously to kind of reduce those inflammatory foods like kind of sugar and refined processed foods, but also just to make sure we're getting enough of the 3 key nutrients for immune support. And these are vitamin C, which we all know about. Vitamin C is, long been the vitamin to go to if you start kind of cold and flu symptoms. So eating citrus fruit and capsicum and strawberries and broccoli, potatoes and Brussels sprouts is ensuring you're getting a good serving of vitamin C each day to help to boost your immune system and help your body fight off any bugs if you do get anything. And vitamin C is also really important to eat with any iron-rich foods as well, just a portion of iron. Vitamin D is very, very important, and there's been a lot of research on vitamin D and sort of viruses in the immune system, particularly in the current climate we're in. And it is really important for immune modulation as well. So if you have an autoimmune disease, of which celiac disease is an autoimmune disease, vitamin D actually helps to kind of modulate that immune system, prevent it getting too overactive. And so we can get vitamin D from sunlight. So being out in the sun allows the vitamin D to be synthesized when the skin comes in contact with the sun. So in the summer, getting out into the sun for at least, say, 15, 20 minutes with no sunscreen out of the heat of the day so you don't get sunburn, really helps to kind of synthesize vitamin D naturally in your body. And in the winter, it's a little bit harder. You just need to be out a bit longer, maybe an hour and a half to synthesize enough vitamin D. So looking at food choices and potentially supplementation as well is a good option. So in terms of food choices, things like cod liver oil. So having a spoonful of cod liver oil each day is a very traditional way to support your immune system. So cod liver oil is rich in vitamin A and D, as well as like your omega-3s as well, so which is really important for inflammation. So that's a good way to get your vitamin D. But also butter, liver is a great source if you that way inclined. I know a lot of people don't like to eat liver. Really great for iron as well, if you are quite low in iron. Egg yolks, red meat, and oily fish as well. Zinc is the third nutrient that you really want to be making sure you're getting enough food sources of at the moment. So oysters is a really good source, but yeah, admittedly, not many of us have access to that. Red meat is another source of zinc, poultry, beans, cashew nuts, almonds, pumpkin seeds, and sunflower seeds, and legumes. So, just having a sprinkling of pumpkin seeds each day in your movies or on your breakfast cereal, that can be a good way to get zinc in each day. I've also added on probiotic foods as well, because probiotic foods are really, really important for immune modulation as well. You may well have heard the term or the statement, 80% of your immune system is in your gut. And that is true. And that's why it's important to support the gut when looking at supporting your immune system. And we can do that by, many things, but one of the ways is to, having a good source of probiotic foods to provide that kind of beneficial bacteria. So things like probiotic yogurt, kefir, you can get like milk kefir or coconut kefir, sauerkraut. I haven't put that on here, I don't know why, but also kombucha, things like sourdough bread and kimchi, they're all probiotic foods. So if it's important, if you're just starting to introduce probiotics gradually, to just start with a little bit and kind of build up from there, mainly because too much at once can make you a bit gassy. But you can bring those in and have them quite regularly. That will really help to support your immune system. So some other benefits of the probiotics, as well as supporting the immune system, is to support the health and integrity of the gut lining. So that's really important. Helps us to digest and absorb our foods better. And, particularly if you are, you do have celiac disease, it's really important. We really do what we can to improve our digestion and absorption of foods. So probiotics can actually help with that. And the probiotics are important for also vitamin production. So vitamin B's and vitamin K are actually produced by our gut bacteria. And so, if you have an imbalanced gut bacteria, more bad guys than good, then the chances are that those vitamin products are not being produced in the gut lining. So it just helps us support those and supports our body's natural detoxification. We all need to be supporting our body's ability to detox naturally on a daily basis, and probiotics is one of the many things we can do to support that. Okay, I just wanted to talk about sort of managing family members that require gluten, and this is kind of mainly from my own personal experience. And you may well have a better way of doing it or have some better advice on this. But what I have found from having, I'm celiac, my son is gluten intolerant. He doesn't do well on gluten, but he's never tested positive for celiac disease. And then you've got the rest of the family who can eat gluten. But what we tend to do is we basically have shared meals based on naturally gluten-free foods. So we would have foods based on meat and fish and peas and rice and potatoes. And we also mainly are a gluten-free family. So that's something you might want to consider, particularly if the celiac in the family is a child. So it does show solidarity. It can be quite upsetting for them if they are treated differently in terms of what they're eating, especially if the family members are all having a nice pizza and they're having like this gluten-free alternative. Eating the same thing, can just be really supportive for the child. They're not feeling very happy about having to eat different foods from everyone else. And usually the parents, they may also have some undetected digestive issues as well, so they may well benefit from being gluten-free as well. I've put on here gluten-free pasta tastes practically the same as normal pasta. And I'm not suggesting that you do the same as me, but this kind of worked in my household, in that a family member who absolutely refused to eat anything gluten-free just had this idea that was going to be horrible. It was going to be tasteless, and yeah, it wasn't very keen on eating it. So I'm not suggesting that this is what you should do, but I just basically swapped pasta. Whenever we had a pasta dish, I just swapped pasta for gluten-free pasta and never mentioned anything. And this family member ate it quite happily. And it was after kind of a few times I said, "Oh, do you like the pasta?" And I was like, "Yeah, it was really good." And I kind of then mentioned it was gluten-free pasta, and he was actually okay with it. He said, "Oh, I didn't realize it would taste exactly the same. I can't really tell the difference." So so that was my way of getting my family member to eat gluten-free pasta. I'm not suggesting you just be dishonest like that, but that was kind of the way around it, and just really getting them to taste the food, and then sort of them realizing that gluten-free food is actually quite nice and tastes exactly the same. So other ideas are like a separate cupboard for gluten-free foods. If you have a teenager or an older child, though, just make sure it's out of arm's reach, because once they get to that age, they're on the hunt for that gluten food, whether they should have it or not. So yeah, just keep that out of teenagers and older kids' reach. Try not to have too much in the house is a solution if you're gluten-free. Otherwise it becomes a sneaking behind your back scenario, which is kind of what I've had experience with. And be careful of cross-contamination. Is an important issue, which you're probably all aware of. So having a separate toaster, a separate spread, labelled in the fridge for butter and different spreads is a good idea, because you get that contamination using a knife, spreading on one piece of gluten bread and then one piece of gluten-free bread, and then you've got that contamination in the butter. So keeping that separate is a good idea. And changing a pan to a new pan and a chopping board if cooking gluten and gluten-free food together. For example, if you're pan frying a fish and flour for someone, and then you're doing a pan fried fish and just oil for someone else, make sure you chopping board and pan for that, just to make sure there's no contamination. So to sum up then, which I really talked about all this already, but just good long-term eating habits on a gluten-free diet. So basing your foods around natural whole foods that nourish your body, which is already talked about. So your sort of meat, veggies, fish, chicken, nuts, seeds, legumes, and dairy. A balanced diet for each meal. So looking at where's my protein coming from, where's my fat coming from, what's fiber am I eating with this food. Limit sugar and refined processed foods, even if they're gluten-free. Occasional treats, just like with people who are eating gluten. Just because that muffin, that blueberry muffin is gluten, it doesn't mean to say it's something you should be eating all the time. Prebiotic and probiotic foods, as mentioned, for gut and immune health, and eating a rainbow of brightly coloured fruits and vegetables each day. So aim for 5 to 8 servings and as much variety as possible, and especially like leafy green vegetables. And so you full of vitamins and minerals and antioxidants and things like phenols, which are really great for your gut health, and things like sulforaphane in like your broccoli, which is really important for as a just immune health as well. So that's kind of my recommendations for good long-term eating habits. Right. Okay, so that's really what I wanted to cover in this presentation. As I mentioned, this was supposed to be a live presentation, and as it's recorded, I'm still opening up any questions. So if you do have any questions, then feel free to email me at nutritionforhealthnz@gmail.com. And I've just added in there just some Facebook page and website if you wanted just to find out a bit more about what I do. Great. Thank you for listening.